with no glaciers, but life continued on. So I'm just wondering that maybe the dire predictions of global warming may not be, first, it's not a theory yet, because there's still a lot of debate, especially among earth scientists, about this issue. Because there have been, in fact, times in the earth that are hotter than now, and there were no humans, so humans could not have been the reason. That's one comment. The second one is regarding the population. I'm just curious because the two fastest growing countries in the world are the two most populated ones, China and India. And to suggest that you should stop sustained growth for those who are not, for example, the Philippines, we're not growing as fast. Isn't it, the question should be focused to the developed countries like the United States? Thank you.
No, well, first about global warming. The question was, the Earth has the thermal history of the Earth shows lots of variations of temperature, but nothing on this time scale. And this variation of temperature is clearly correlated with CO2 emissions. So this is not part of a secular variation, and it's happening very rapidly and accelerating. And I don't think that, Homo sapiens can't deal with it. I don't think I agree it's not a big problem in the sense that humans could easily survive. We could have a total collapse of civilization and reduce the population to what it was most of our history, of 1 million or so people spread out around the world, and they would, as they did for millions of years, live with these temperature variations. But we live in a very populous world with approaching 9 billion people, which is much more precarious and susceptible to disruption. So what we're talking about are not threats to perhaps the extinction of the human race, but to civilization. I was not advocating that underdeveloped countries stop their growth. What I really was advocating was that two things was that developed countries think about stopping their consumption. But I was trying to address the problem a little more broadly. It is true that most of the world is still highly underdeveloped and quite poor, and does need to and will develop to the standard of living that those of us in the United States or in Europe enjoy. But where do we go from there? If you look at the growth of GDP, energy consumption, material consumption, mineral consumption, in the United States, it is still accelerating. It is any country in the world, no matter how rich they are, if the economy does not grow in a given year, then the politicians are in danger of being booted out of office. Growth is taken to be a sacred goal of humankind, not just when you need it to eradicate disease and poverty, but for it to stay in political office. Why is that? Not only politically, but economically. Economists will tell you if you don't have growth, everything is disastrous. Our whole economic system, capitalism, which works fantastically in this model of creating more and more and more, but only if we continue to create more and more and more. We've tried alternatives to this system. They haven't worked, but we need some alternative. I think that's partly at the root cause of our problem, that we can see no other way to exist as an economic social system throughout the world except by growing, growing, growing. Is there no other way? Is there never going to be a time, like in the United States, for example, with our standard of living, where enough is enough? Or instead of more, we want something better or different, more sustainable. I think this is going to be, in the end, the major issue, and people are not talking about it or trying to come up with new solutions. And I certainly don't have the solution, but the problem, I think, is self-evident.
Thank you. Okay, I see a lot more hands raised in the theater, but you will forgive me if we go to one of our remote sites, because I have been told that UP Mindanao is eager to join us and ask a question. Come in, Mindanao.
Greetings from UP Mindanao. We have questions from our...
Do we hear Mindanao?
This is UP Mindanao. We have questions from our audience.
Can you hear Dr.
The
Rose?
first question comes from Albert Neil Oponda, sophomore, BS Computer Science student of the College of Science and Mathematics.
Okay, why don't I read the question? It's in the prompter. This is a question from a second-year BS Computer Science student from UP Mindanao, Mr. Albert Neil Openda. His question is rather lengthy. I will read it. Your discovery on asymptotic freedom, along with Professor David Politzer of Caltech and Professor Frank Wilczek of MIT, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is a key discovery that explained how quarks, the elementary constituents of the atomic nucleus, are bound together to form protons, neutrons, and their elementary particle cousins. Your work on this research was completed in 1973, but the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics to you in October 2004. What do you think are the reasons that made it so long for the Nobel Foundation to give you their seal of approval?
Well, so QCD, this theory of the strong interactions, when we finished that in the middle 70s, was a theory. The Swedes are very careful with theories, as they should be. They, in the case of theoretical, I mean, when you make an experimental discovery, it usually is quite clear. You've discovered something. It's there. When you present a theory, might be right, explains a lot of things, but maybe it's wrong. Most theories are wrong. So they are very careful to make sure that the predictions of the theory are really tested. Now, in our case, the predictions were quite specific, and there were many, but very hard. It took a long time, very hard work, new accelerators, hundreds of people working for many, many years to truly test the theory. So that's part of the major part of the reason why it takes them often very long to recognize advances in theoretical physics. They don't want to be wrong. They want to make sure that when they recognize an advance in theory, that it is unquestionably true.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from UP Open University, and we have them with us via video conference. Is that right? UPOU, please come in. Oh. Okay, I think I have the question in the prompter. The question is coming from a tutor, in the program Master of Development Communication in the UPOU, Father Gerard Ravasco. He's actually from Sihanoukville, Cambodia. The question: in the field of communication, we are witnessing the convergence of physical, biological, and social science concepts. Do you foresee mainstream physics having more to do with the social sciences if indeed everything is physics?
Well, you know, when I said everything is physics, it's of course true, but not very useful. Starting with a standard model, we can explain the structure of atoms. Starting with one atom, we can explain the structure of water and ice. But from there to explain the structure of biological cells and then put them together to explain the structure of the human mind are many, many, many steps. And by the time we go along that direction, we can forget about a lot of the physics. I don't think, no, that our continuing advances in the fundamental physics will help us in sociology, but I do think that our fundamental advances that are being made now in our microscopic understanding of biological matter will help us in sociology. And as I said in the end, I look forward sometime in this century to that happening. The social sciences at the moment are very descriptive and non-reductionist. But in the end, they're all about the behavior of humans. And the behavior of humans is governed by our brains. Much of it is built into our genetic code and the way the brain functions. And we have no understanding of that. And it seems to me extremely unlikely that the social sciences will ever get to the same level of understanding and control without unless they are built on a firm microscopic biological basis.
Thank you. I've been told that UP Los Baños is ready with a question. UP Los Baños, please come in.
We have a question here from an applied physics student.
Hello, I'm Carl Simon Gadar, an applied physics student. I'm from the College of Arts and Sciences. I would just like to ask, what is your personal opinion about intelligent design? There are a lot of intellectual scientists who have their own opinions about intelligent design. I'm just curious about your personal opinion.
Okay, that's not too clear, but I think I have the question in the prompter. It's interesting. What is your opinion about intelligent design?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. What different people mean different things by intelligent design, but if what you mean is that the idea that if you look at life, the different forms of life and the changes that have occurred over the last few billion years, it seems too good to be true. There must be some agent outside of the system that designed this marvelous thing we call life. Well, I think that's totally wrong and contradicted by everything we've learned about